Your first Substack live, right?
First time.
Okay. Yeah, so quick thing, um, for everybody. Um, I wr I wrote a book earlier this year, um, called Now That I'm Still Here. It is kind of a multifaceted story, talks about a lifetime of masking. Um, there's some, cultural displacement, sprinkled in there, a lot of psychological abuse, that finally cracked open something, or it cracked open a collapse, that forced me to choose between disappearing and rebuilding. Um, and so it traces my childhood between worlds, that marriage that almost killed me, and the night everything shattered for the last time. So it's it traces that journey of the psych ward, what happened afterwards, and this long road of recovery, unexpected love, and the grief that nearly broke me again. Um, so yeah, that's my book. It's available wherever books are sold and worldwide. And today I am hosting my mother, who uh, plays a part in the book and in life. And well, hi, Diane.
Hi, Chris.
Yeah, and for the eagle-eared viewers, yes, I call my mom Diane. I don't call her mom. But anyway, well, I think that this kind of talk is wanted to get it's basic. I wanted to be as organic as possible. I want to talk about like the book, how you felt about when I first told you what I tried to do, how that hit you, and yeah, let's just talk and any questions that you may have, and what you think of me actually being an author these days.
Well, I think it's fantastic that you're an author, and I really want to congratulate you on that and for being so brave and for, giving mental health, people going through mental health crises, a voice. I think having a voice in today's world is super, super important. Well, one of my questions as a parent who has walked part of this with you, um, as far as, adults in their marriage, your marriage was about a 12-year marriage.
Yeah.
And even though I had some concerns and qualms as a parent, I felt like it wasn't my business to get involved. And yet you were married to a woman who had narcissistic tendencies and who had a deeply narcissistic mother. So I'm just wondering, like, what advice would you like to give to parents out there who might have adult children in similar situations? Should we just not get involved because you're an adult married, or what would you recommend?
I think that's a tightrope, right? Because at the end of the day, like I was an adult. What was I? I was 27 when I decided to get married, right?
Yes. Mhm.
Um, and like I think as a family you could give an opinion, right? But
Mhm.
it's not really. Uh, I think the better question is not for the parents themselves, but for the person, right? I had a lot of red flags, like internal red flags that I ignored, right? I think the first one being I wasn't really in love with her, right? It was just something out of like convenience, and I ignored the red flags, right? Um, and I think it was more of just because I was just settling. I had just gotten out of that relationship with the Turkish girl, right? And I was like mainly heartbroken from that, and I just kind of settled, right? Um, and I ignored the red flags because I thought I felt understood, right?
Mm. Mhm.
And as a parent, you can only say so much, right? Like, hey, I think this is a bad idea, right? At the end of the day, as a 27-year-old man or a 27-year-old person, the decision is ultimately theirs, right?
Right.
And the thing is, the more resistance a family puts up, uh the more entrenched the person becomes, right? On
Mhm.
their position. Like, no, I'm staying. You guys are being jerks about it, kind of a thing. So, um, the real advice would be to the person. What are the red flags? And are you compromising your conscience for something? And I would just say ultimately listen to your gut, right? If it doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel right for a reason. And you know it. And if your parents or your family tells you, like, I think this is a bad idea, and you have those red flags, then I would say listen.
Mhm. So as a parent, maybe, something that I could have done at that time may have been to ask some good questions, not to tell you what to do, but to get involved by asking some really good questions so that you might reconsider the decision that you were making.
Yeah, and I think a good question would have been like, "Hey, do you love this person?"
Uh-huh.
Like,
Yeah.
really.
The yeah. The basic question.
And yeah, like I loved her in a different way, like as a human being loves another. But marriage material, like I think ultimately I thought I did, but I think reflectively speaking, I was just settling.
Mhm. Mhm. And once you kind of I know that, when you get involved in a relationship that is abusive and unhealthy, it's kind of a slow drip, right? And you kinda don't even realize that it's happening.
Mhm.
So, when did you realize it? And what might be a because I kinda didn't know until I came to visit you and saw the state that you were in. But until then, I really didn't have much of a clue. I had some thoughts, but I just thought it was normal marriage, challenges that we all have. So,
The
I'm wondering, like, when you realized and, my questions are kinda geared for all those parents out there who might have adult children that they're concerned about. Um, did
well,
you ever think about asking us for help or telling us what was going on, or didn't you realize?
it's a tricky situation, right? Like in like I think the slow drip was unnoticeable for a really long time up until I got the diagnosis for autism, right? That's
Mhm.
when I kind of started to escalate, right? It went from slow drip to let's turn on the fire hose kind of a thing, right?
Mhm.
And and initially, like, I did what any normal person would do, right? I would well, what any I shouldn't say that, I should put it that way. I did what any person in their right mind would do. Like, I initially started fighting back, like, "That's kinda fucked up," right? You're a special education teacher telling me that I someone recently diagnosed with autism, that I'm an embarrassment and things like that. Like, explain that to me, and then, that led to that led to confrontations and things like that, and eventually, like, I shut up, A, told the piece, but B, like, when you get brainwashed into thinking like, eventually, I got brainwashed into thinking and believing, right? I didn't I wanted to reach out for help in the beginning, but A, I didn't know how, and sometimes the simplest way to do it is just ask it, right? Um, but then as a man, I kind of felt ashamed because it's the other way around, right? It's the man abusing the woman, right? Not the woman abusing the man, and so I felt really ashamed to kind of like admit it, especially to uh in the kind of multicultural home that we're in, right? Of the one side of it is Latino, like the Latino culture. It's like you're the man, you're supposed to be strong, and you get that kind of context thrown at you. So that kind of made it even worse for me to not say anything.
Mhm.
And then then there was the collapse. There was there were the attempts, right? And
Y
I didn't say anything. I don't know why. I think mainly because I felt like I failed at that too, right? Um,
You failed at what too?
so I'll go full candid mode, right? So asterisk, uh, you know, I failed to kill myself, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so how do you admit that to anybody?
Mhm.
How do you? And that's the kind of
Mhm.
like what I struggled with. And then I don't know what prompted me to kind of come clean after the fact. I think it was months. I think it was like 6 months after I tried the last time when I said
Mhm.
when I said something to I think I told Michelle that first. And I
Mhm. So Michelle being sibling, it was easier to tell a sibling than a parent is what may be happening here.
Yeah, and then that's when I was kind of like fading again. And you months after you came to visit and you saw me at my like I was so despondent and on anything. I felt if you had asked me to walk a spoon from the living room to the kitchen, put it in the sink, that in itself was just overwhelming.
And parents out there, when I saw him in this condition, it crossed my mind to just take over, and take him with me and get some help. And why didn't I? Um, I felt like it was more of a marriage issue than a mental health issue for me to get involved in. And, if I would make that call again, I might do it differently, perhaps. But what I did was I waited till Christopher's wife came back so that the three of us could have a conversation. And I was more focused on this was a um, financial marriage issue that then created this mental health state. And that was part of the truth. But the other part of the truth was that there was this severe mental health state that needed immediate attention.
But
And so I was grateful that eventually you did reach out to your sister and she got it and she just took over and said, "I'm coming."
to be fair, to by the time he came to visit, you s I don't think you still understood the full extent of what was happening, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
From from I still didn't give you the I still didn't give anyone the full information, you know? At first, all you knew was it was the mom that was causing all of this. You didn't
Right.
know it was her too, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and that was very scary for me to admit, right? That still because of that societal context, right? Of men aren't the ones that get abused. Men are supposed to be strong, right?
Mhm.
Um, and it wasn't till she had gone to so what you had referenced, she had gone to Madagascar to see her, came back, and you had this conversation with her and me, and then shortly thereafter, um, she asked for a divorce. That was the second time she asked for a divorce. The first time was because, like, earlier that year, because she wanted kids because her mom gave her sisters all the attention in the world because they had kids, and she wanted that attention, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And then the second time was, "Well, your mom called me on my shit, so I want a divorce," right? And I said, "Well, what about what you've done to me and what your mom's been doing to me since essentially we got married, and especially after after the diagnosis of I'm an embarrassment to the family. I'm going to do everything I can to get you divorced. You should probably think of killing yourself because you're worthless. What about that?" And
Mhm.
she said, "Don't you dare, bring my mom into this." And And I was like, "Okay, well, what about what you've been doing? You've been doing the same thing for years."
Well, I wanna go back to what a parent can do.
"Oh,
Um, 'Cause, I appreciate all the details of the story here, but I know that this, uh, kind of, talk is a little bit about what can a parent do, because there's a lot of parents out there that may suspect that their adult child is married to a narcissist, and according to some of the statistics I've seen, it actually it is more frequent that it's a female married to a male. It's a little more frequent. So there are these situations out there. And um when I roll back the video and I think, is there something I could have done to prevent some of the pain that you endured? It's really interesting because as a parent, you know, we want to do that, and at the same time, there's a certain amount of pain that we all go through in life, and it's a normal, natural part of growing up and coming into our own, right?
Mhm.
So, like like, what without retelling the whole story, what what could I have done or us as a family have done, if anything, to really help prevent some of the pain that you endured?
That's a tough question. I don't think he could have done anything. I don't know. Let me throw it back at you. What the same question. Uh, and you're asking me because
Sure.
I have no context. I don't know what it's like to be a parent. I don't have kids,
Uh-huh.
except for Shadow, right? Shadow
Uh-huh.
ain't married, sadly, though she has a lot of prospects. Um, but what do you what let me throw that question back to you. What could you have done?
Well, there's a couple of thoughts I had. Um, for me, um, I knew immediately when I met the mother a couple days before the wedding that there was something terribly wrong with her. Um, I knew that because, upon meeting her and I was excited to meet her, and I came all the way to Madagascar for the wedding, she had a list of complaints about you, and that's what she wanted to talk about with me. So I as a mama bear, I kinda wanted to just throw my food at her or but then I poised and thought to myself, "What would love do right now?" And so I shifted the conversation into mama bear to mama bear. Our job here is to help this young couple who's in love to have the healthiest, happiest relationship they possibly can. And it shifted the energy. She wasn't able to really be in that energy. And so I knew something was terribly wrong. But I felt like it wasn't my place to do anything about it in that moment. However, I think I could have been more vigilant in watching what was transpiring and maybe be uh, maybe be someone who asked you questions along the way. But maybe anybody else can do that except for a parent, because maybe the parent is, I can remember, you know, uh, when my mother was around, if I had some issues with my husband, as we all do in our marriages, I didn't want her to know anything about it because I didn't want her to not like my husband. And I felt like it wasn't her space to be in. So I think it's a real interesting tightrope that a parent walks when they might suspect that their adult child is married to someone who can be so I mean, the everything I've read subsequently about being married to a narcissist just sounds absolutely positively horrendous and awful. And and so um it just puts a parent in a really funny position. So one of the things I do think about is that as parents, and any parents out there with younger adults, we don't talk so much about marriage and what marriage is like and how to find a good partner and how this is one of the most important decisions you make in your life. You know, it's much more important than where you're gonna go to college. And so I do think that creating spaces in our society, in our community, and in our families to really talk about the importance of that biggest decision in your life, who you're going to share your life with, and how to do it in a way that you're considering a lot more than just a feeling in the moment. Does that make any sense, Chris? I know you're not a parent, but
That's apparent. No, just kidding.
but like you said, you were only 27 years old. You were kind of on you were thinking about not being with this Turkish girl anymore. You wanted a replacement, and marriage is a much bigger decision than that, right?
Yeah. So, advice to my younger self, be smarter on a decision like that. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I kept a lot of stuff quiet, especially the last, let's say, 4 years of my marriage.
Mhm.
Um, what what was the moment you realized I wasn't just struggling, I was actually drowning?
Um, I think it was what really comes to mind to me was, when I was when I came to visit, and it was interesting because who asked me to come and visit was your wife. She was going to visit her mom in Madagascar, and she said, "I think Chris could really benefit from your presence." It wasn't you that called me and asked me to come. It was her. And so I I think she was in her own strange way, even though she may have been causing a lot of the pain, I do think she was concerned, and she didn't know what to do. So, the moment there was a moment when you and I were walking, shadow, and we were walking along the water there that was close to your house, and you kind of felt comfortable and kinda let down some of your guard and just kinda said, "I don't know who I am, what I'm doing, or where I'm going right now." And I saw this tremendous pain in your face. And I knew that you were really, really, really suffering. And, you know, as a parent, I just wanted to take you and cuddle you and bring
No,
you somewhere
no
where
more
you
sheets
could feel
off.
good.
You're making me
What?
squirm now. You're making me squirm with the physical contact. Uh, but, kind of as a follow-up to that question, right? You didn't know too much up until I put it down on paper, right? Um, like, at least you didn't know the full extent of it. You had snippets, right? In the book, I kinda, like, laid it out for everybody, right? Um, as a parent, what part of you had to put that book down because it hurt too much?
Mm, that's such a good question, and so many of my friends have asked me that question, like, how how can you operate with that book around? How can you not feel guilty? I think Gosh, I'm trying to think the part that really I mean, the whole thing was painful, but I think for me, the most painful part was realizing how much you were suffering as a young child, and you masked it so well that, I knew you were a bit different. I knew that I challenged you tremendously uh, by moving from country to country too quickly. I mean, I knew that, but when I read the book, the depth of that and your ability to really, uh, help the reader feel it. I think that's what this book really does. It helps the reader feel it so that it's a voice for people with mental health issues and children with mental health issues. That's really, really important. But I felt, like you said in the book, I felt tremendous guilt at one point that, wow, I I didn't I didn't feel and see it to the extent that it was. I mean, you were involved in therapy from the time you were in kindergarten and, you know but you know what? It's not just therapy. It's not like, "Okay, therapy, check." It's a whole series of things that, a parent and a family really needs to take on when somebody's challenged with the environment, with what's happening. And it's almost like you have to take an opportunity to just stop and to just focus on that. And I feel like I did it to some extent, but I didn't do it to the extent that was necessary in the moment. And to know that you suffered as much as you did was really hard for me to read about.
You know, you could do with that guilt. My birthday's in like a week.
No, I've go
Kidding. Uh,
I've moved past the guilt.
well,
I've
good.
moved past the guilt because I really believe that guilt is a wasted emotion. It's no good for anyone. And
Here-
that
Here's the thing, Diane, not to cut you off. I didn't write the book to make anyone feel guilty, right?
I know that.
Um, I think a lot of it, like the whole masking or growing up autistic and not knowing about it and feeling different, right? It's something we learn to do, right, for survival,
Got
right?
it.
And you know, I grew up in the late '80s, early '90s as a kid, and it the misconception of autism back then was, hey, Rain Man, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, I don't know if you catch the reference on it. Like, have you ever seen the movie The Rain Man?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so because I was functioning, right? I could pass off as a highly functional person. I went undetected, right? So I did that to survive the world, right? And what happened subsequently after as an adult, I you couldn't help address anything of if you didn't know about it. You didn't know I was going through that level of abuse. You didn't know, right? So how could you do anything? How could you
Well
see it?
well, I think often as parents, we believe that we should know, you know? That big should out there. And that's probably a pretty false should.
Do you know what I
Um,
had for dinner last night? Right.
no.
I asked that question as a joke because I didn't tell you what I had for dinner last night,
Uh-huh.
right? And
Mhm.
I'm making the point of, if I didn't tell you, how would you know, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
so and it's hard to to know. What are you, a telepath, or what? It's
Well well, we I knew that you had some struggles that might have been different than other people. I mean, I knew that when you went to kindergarten, right?
Mhm.
And, and I knew that when we even created a one-room schoolhouse in Bolivia that was very effective for you. And so I knew that, but I also believe that we're all different and we all need different things. And that's something that's really hard to create in a school system, in a community, in a society. And I think that's something we're learning. Um, and what I would say to parents is pay attention and just really listen, because I really appreciated that when you were in middle school, um, in your health class, they were teaching about depression, and they taught, here's the questions about depression. If you answer more than 2 yes or something like that, you might have an issue. And you came home and told me that. I answered more questions, and so I think I might be depressed. And I was able to take you again, therapy is very helpful, but I was paying more attention because you were honest and open with me. So I would say that as parents, what can we do, especially when kids are younger? We need to create a safe relationship with them where they feel comfortable enough to come and say, I answered some of those questions in health class, and I think I might need some help. So I think it's all about the relationship we create. Like, what encouraged you to come home and say that to me? Do you remember that?
the barrage of questions you launched at me. I don't remember.
You
I
don't
don't
remember that?
actually. So, um,
But it made me feel like there was something really healthy about the relationship that allowed you to be able to express that to me
mm,
and say, "You know what? I think I need some help."
can I throw you a softball question real quick
Yeah.
to shift the from the heavy for 2 seconds? At what point in the book did you realize that Shadow was the only one in his family with consistent leadership potential?
Well, that was early in the book, right? And, you know, that is another really interesting piece. The kind of relationship that developed over time between you and your beautiful German Shepherd, uh,
She's
is
listening, by the
pretty is pretty phenomenal. And
way. Yeah,
as a parent, I can't tell you how many times I've sat with her and expressed my gratitude to her. Um, and I think this is an important point for any, especially younger person, or and a parent seeing a younger person challenged. I do think there's something very healing about a healthy relationship with a pet, but especially a Germ I think there's something very special about a German Shepherd, and, um, Shadow the good thing about Shadow is she doesn't have an opinion about anything exactly through words. She has an opinion about everything through how she moves and how she operates, and it seems like that's easier for you to hear and to accept than words.
And I think what started off as a joke, as a joke question, I think touches upon a little bit something more serious, right? Um, Last week at the coffee shop, someone I ran into someone who bought my book about a month ago, right? And she asked me an interesting question, like after everything collapsed, after you got the help you needed, right? Like you didn't walk out fixed, right?
Mhm.
That is still that's still a work in progress, right? What was what was the thing that kept you tethered, right? And to be honest, that tether was super thin. Shadow.
Yeah.
Shadow was it literally was that thin. If she wasn't around, like, I don't know, right? And I say that because I'm over a year out of everything that happened. I'm still a work in progress, but in those times, right? It was it still is, but in those times it was the little things that counted, right?
Right.
The the going outside, right? I had to go outside. That that woman has needs, right? She had to pee and poo, right?
You mean, the
Shadow.
dog, yeah,
Yeah,
the dog.
what I
Mhm.
mean. The dog had
Mhm.
needs. She needed to make daily deposits, right? Um, and that got me outside. That got me talking to people because they would walk out and say, "Hey, that's an old girl," and I would meet other people that had dogs, and I started meeting people. I didn't want to talk to anybody at the time. I just wanted to be left alone. But a month of that, after everything, 2 months after that, 3 months after everything collapsed, like I was grateful for those little small moments going outside. Because all of a sudden I knew the entire apartment complex. Everyone would say, "Hey, Chris, how you doing? Where's Shadow today? Where is she?" Obviously she was more popular than me, as it should be, but it was those little moments that actually really helped a lot, and that
So let me ask you this. What about a parent out there and their adult child or child has been struggling and they don't have a pet?
then find that one thing that is so important that keeps them tethered. What is that one thing? Because that's all it takes. That one thing. It's different for anybody, right?
Right.
But luckily, I had two things, right? Really, I had the dog, but I also had. If I didn't have the dog, I would have had my guitar, right? Um, but everyone has that one thing that keeps them grounded and tethered no matter what, right?
Uh-huh. Okay.
Find if you don't know what that thing is, find it and work it, right? Or if you know what that thing is, work it, right?
Now, can a parent help someone in this situation find it, or is it something one has to find themselves? And or is there something you can do to inspire that?
I think it's a conversation you could ask. Is like I think they may not necessarily have an answer for what keeps you tethered, but it'll get them thinking about it, right? Ultimately, I think is my unprofessional opinion, right? They have to find it themselves. If they
Yeah.
don't know what it is, they have to find it themselves. You as a parent can't find it for them as much as you want to help, right?
Mhm.
Because if it's kind of top down, then that healing process isn't going to be sustainable because it
Mhm.
didn't come from them, right?
Mhm. There is something I wanna bring up before we end this,
Oh, you
if I can.
ready?
What?
Want to leave me already?
No, 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 I wanna put this in there
Oh, before you
before.
forget.
Yeah. So, one of the things that maybe you don't even know, but that I just want to mention to other parents out there, it's been about 2 years or so that I've been walking this with you, right?
Yeah, almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years this coming February, actually. Boy,
Yeah.
time flies.
And 2 years ago in February, I know I was taking care of Shadow while you were in the hospital and such. Well, one of the things that, I was fighting, and for for a good portion of that time, probably 18 months, it was difficult for me to be productive in any way. It was like my brain became dysfunctional, which, my brain is a bit dysfunctional anyway, but
Truth.
I I'm a certified professional coach. I was, dipping into my, uh, private practice I decided to let it go and not do that because I was on a healing path also, and I also wanted
Mm,
to really be there for you, in my full strength. And I have talked to some other, um, parents of adult children who have expressed something very similar. Some have even left their jobs.
mm,
So, what I just want to say is this is overwhelming. It does take over. And I think you can't fight it. You need to let it because there's a healing process that us parents need to go through throughout all this also.
mm,
And it's hard to find the right help as a parent, I found.
mm.
The mental health system,
Is broken.
well, it's very challenging to meet all the needs in our society today. And I could say there's some strengths in it and there's some weaknesses in it. And one of the weaknesses, I think, is really um, family therapy and family management. And not all family members want to be involved.
Mm,
That's that's true. Especially true in these kinds of situations. But the whole family's affected somehow,
yeah.
and the whole family's part of. the healing process too. And that's what makes this all so very challenging and difficult. I literally people, are looking for a family therapist are like, "Well, we only have one person on staff who does that." As if and I really do believe that that's where we really need to strengthen. And it's the family unit where we can get better. Uh, and and I just feel like there is kind of an absence there. And, your therapist, rightly so, she's like, I'm not a therapist for the family. I'm a therapist for Christopher. So you will have to find a family therapist to deal with all these things. And it was really hard to find one.
Yes, and couple things. I think that's a good segue into my Road to 2000 campaign of trying to sell 2,000 so I can make $6,000 donations to
Yes.
getting getting access or allowing individuals to gain access to mental health services, right? Um, so that's the pitch is that easy. I'm trying to sell 2,000 books. For every 2,000 books I sell, I write a uh, $6,000 donation. I mean, it'll. I got to be careful now how I phrase this. It's a total of $6,000 to three organizations, $2,000 each, maintaining the road to 2,000. One organization that I'm working with is the Association for Suicide Prevention, which, by the way, phenomenal resource. I can't speak to that enough. They have free services for attempt survivors. I started going every week. I went for the second time this past Wednesday. It's just an hour. You talk to people that get it. The other one is for autism support, and then the third, in honor of Katie, uh, the um, the Massachusetts Eating Disorders Association, right? Um, but it's trying to do exactly that is fix the system. I know it's not going to fix it. I just want to help people get access to a broken system or help, trying to get them to help. That right, but going to your point a little bit is yes, it does affect the family a lot, right? I mean, I don't know how hard it is for a family member to hear another one say, "Hey, I did my very best not to be here anymore." Right? Um, that must be really hard to hear, right? What hit it home for me was exactly this. When I was in the hospital, um, I mostly kept to myself, and I really wanted out. it was it was kind of like a initially a really scary first 24 hours in a hospital, and it can be scary. Um, but once you kind of settle in and actually do what you're supposed to be doing, like listening to the cognitive behavior. Anyway, um, there was a lady in there from the Azores, um, who just for my first 36 hours at the hospital, she was just bawling her eyes out. She was wandering the halls of the hospital, just bawling her eyes out. And I initially thought, well, this lady's a little crazy, you know. Who am I judging, right? Uh, I thought that was fun. Like looking back, it's like uh, how funny, how cute it was that I was judging somebody, right? I was there too. And one morning, I was just getting some steps in, and she was doing the same. And I don't know what prompted me, but I asked her, "How you doing today?" And she said, like, in an accent, "I don't speak English." So I said, "What do you speak?" And she said, "Portuguese." So I started speaking to her in Spanish because you can understand each other, and, um, she was telling me that, uh, just she had lost her son, like, 2 weeks before, in a car accident, right? And that woman loved her son a lot, right? You I mean, so much so that, like, it drove her to a hospital, right? And she bawled her eyes out, and I listened to her story. Now she looked a lot like grandma, like, a lot like grandma. Same height, same haircut and everything, same body shape, and only she didn't speak English, she spoke Portuguese, right? Um, and I just listened to her, and I couldn't help but to think, like, if I had succeeded, right, this could have been my mom, right? Um, so that was a good perspective moment for me, right? Um, it does impact the family afterwards very much, because, you know, there's that worry, right? And everyone wants to help in their own version of knowing how to help, right? Um, and it's hard for me to get I I'm gonna preface this. I appreciate the help, like, and the attempts of helping, right? Um, I think where I get kind of anxious and frustrated, not frustrated isn't necessarily the right word, but is I know you guys love me and I know you guys want to help. Um, it's very hard to convey the kind of help I need, right? Um, and for you to get it as a family, right? And I think that's why for me it's been so catalytic for me to talk with the Samaritans, right? Because I'm talking to fellow survivors. They get what it's like to be standing at the edge and so exhausted from asking for help and not being heard, right? And I think it's a combination of talking to people who get it, that stood in my shoes, and the kind of help that the family is providing in terms of support. But I think that's catalytic, the talking to other people who get it too.
Yep, absolutely. And, as your therapist rightly pointed out, is that family members are going through their own trauma about it,
Yeah.
which which, while you're in your healing mode, it's hard for you to even have to deal with. In fact, you can't. And so, that's one of the challenges about, getting well from all this, that everybody is in some way affected, and how they get well is different for everyone. And part of what happens as family members is our lives have been affected. So we have, instead of being in the being mode and just being with you because I understand that's what you need, there's a conflict with our need about, oh my gosh, we got to fix this now because we need to move on. So that is really hard to manage. And that's why it's terrific you're going to the Samaritans, and I think there are some resources out there for families to do the same. I know that your IOP has, and I was trying to click into this, um, had some kind of resource for family members from the IOPs. But I think what's happened is there's so much demand for mental health that all this important follow-up isn't so clear for families. And that's where I think your contributions with your book and maybe our voices, we can really help create more resources so that families can heal together somehow because there's this conflict going on all the time.
Yeah, and I think as much you said something on, we're gonna fix it and move on kind of a thing, it's,
Mhm.
um, like, I appreciate like, me personally hearing that, like, I appreciate the sentiment, but, like, it it saying it that way kind of implies, like, let's get this over with quickly, right? And
Yeah, and I'm not saying that's healthy or that's anything that we should put on you, but I think that it's a familiar familial reaction, uh, a survival reaction, and it's really not fair to someone who's healing in their time and in their space. Does that make sense?
yeah, and so, like, the sentiment is there, you know, like, we want this fixed yesterday so that things can be better, right? And I think as much as any of us that are going through this or have gone through this, as much as we want it all to be fixed yesterday, it's a long road ahead,
Right,
right?
right.
It's I think a necessary road, a good road, because that means for on a basic level, like you're still here, right? And
Mhm,
it was sharing your story with your family and them rising up to the occasion to stay is a good thing to fix what got broken, right?
mhm,
I mean, it isn't going to be a 100% fix ever because you're still going to remember, but it it's going to be so much better once you once you work once you and your family work through this moment in time, right? Because the alternative is you leave this world and your family has to deal with the aftermath and you leave a gaping hole, right? And I could have done that, right? And then what? You know, yeah, like staying it staying did impact you in some way, right? You you left you stopped working on your private practice, I feel bad about that, right? But like if I had something I think about is if okay, that's a small price to pay if the alternative is putting, my mom in a hospital with that much pain of losing her son or her child, right? And it's not just your mom, it's your siblings, your friends that have to deal with that too, right?
mhm,
You leave a gaping hole, and they'll be left with more questions than answers, right?
mhm,
The benefit of you staying and working through your shit is you can answer questions. They can ask you, like I can answer questions like, "What did I miss?" As my mom asking me, "What did I miss?" And I could tell you, like, so for next time, this doesn't happen again, right? I'm just rambling now, but it's more of like a reflection of, like, the point to land this rambling point down is help is can mean different things. Who helps you along the way? You have to be very picky. Not picky, but seek out the right help. Your family being one of them, but also people who get it, right?
Mhm.
It's a process.
Mhm.
Messy, but it's better. You'll be better for it at the end.
Yeah. So, I think we should land on a hopeful point. Um, there's help out there, and
Oh, there is.
it's not perfect. It's not perfect. There is no perfect help. This is very complex situations. We're living in a complex time, but there is help out there. And I would say anybody going through challenges, reach out. I remember when the help showed up at the door physically, and social worker, police, and they were so skilled and did such a wonderful job. And the whole process wasn't perfect, but it did save my son in the moment, and I'm forever grateful. So reach out, find the imperfect health help, reach out to friends. Don't carry this all by yourself, and know that it's a journey for everybody. I'm still on that journey, but I'm so grateful I have my son and that we're growing and learning together. And I'm so proud of you, Chris, for being a spokesperson and for writing this book. I'm excited about the sequel that you're going to write. I just can imagine what that looks like at the right moment and the right time. And I
So
just want to share my appreciation to everybody who's supporting you at this time.
yeah, and if you're shy and quiet like me, you can always text 988 and do it from the privacy of a text message, rather than if you don't wanna go and reach out to your family. Um, 988 is a great resource. Um, there's there's a lot of trained people out there on the other end of that line that can help and get you the help you need too. But, um, yeah, so I don't know how else we can land this plane other than, um yeah, my book is out there. You can get it at chriscarazas.com. It's available all around the world, so people in France, you can buy it too. Um, and, just you can go to Amazon, your local bookstore, goodreads.com, wherever great books are sold. And I would appreciate any help I can get for the Road to 2000 campaign too. So and the cycle repeats for every 2000. So imagine what I could do if I sell 12,000 books.
We'll
It's
get there.
yeah. So, yeah, imagine all the people we could help.
Mhm.
Anyway, um, yeah, so any final concluding remarks, Diane, as the matriarch of the family?
Don't ever give up. Don't ever give up. The road to being healthy again, like you've said so many times, isn't a straight line. but what is healthy? It's just moving forward every day and appreciating who you are and what you have. And, I'm just so grateful, Chris, that you're here to help others. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Healing is a long series of little small things.
Mhm.
Yeah. Don't quote me on that one, though.
And thanks everybody out there who's listening.
Oh, there's only 12 of them, but maybe we'll get more later.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, and thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, Diane.
Bye.